The rain was heavy. People stood around watching, but no one moved. Inside the luxury car, a man in a fine suit lay still. Then a small voice broke the silence. "Wait, he's not breathing." A barefoot little girl ran forward while adults froze in fear. What she did next saved a life everyone had already given up on. And when the truth about who that man really was came out, you won't believe what happened next. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello family, welcome to Tales by King. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The rain did not fall gently that evening. It came down hard, beating the road like angry drums. The sky was dark, and the streetlights flickered as if they were tired of fighting the storm. Cars rushed past, their headlights cutting through the rain. Most drivers were in a hurry to get home. No one wanted to stop. But one black luxury car sat strangely on the side of the road. Its engine was still on. The lights were still glowing. Yet the car did not move. A few people slowed down. One man stopped his motorcycle. A woman with an umbrella stepped closer. Soon, a small group stood a short distance away, staring. Inside the car was a well-dressed man. His suit was neat, his watch expensive, and his shoes spotless. His head leaned against the window. His eyes were closed. His hands rested on his lap. He looked calm, but too calm. "Maybe he's just sleeping," a man said, though his voice was unsure. "No one sleeps like that in the rain," another replied. The woman with the umbrella knocked lightly on the window. "Sir," she called. "Can you hear me?" There was no response. She knocked harder. Still nothing. A heavy silence filled the air. The rain seemed louder now. "He must be drunk," someone muttered. "Or worse," another voice said quietly. "We should wait for the police." No one reached for the door. No one checked his pulse. No one wanted to be responsible. Fear held them back. Then, from the edge of the road, a small figure stepped forward. She was a little girl, thin and soaked from the rain. Her worn dress clung to her body. Her sandals were broken, and mud covered her feet. A small bag hung loosely from her shoulder. She looked at the man in the car. Then she looked at the crowd. Her eyes narrowed, sharp and focused, too serious for her age. She ran closer and pressed her face to the window. Her heart jumped. She saw his chest. It was not rising. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned quickly and shouted, her voice trembling but strong enough to cut through the rain in fear. "Wait, he's not breathing." The words froze everyone in place. Conversations stopped. Umbrellas lowered. Even the rain felt quieter for a moment. The little girl did not wait for permission. She moved closer to the door, her small hands already reaching for the handle. And in that moment, while everyone else stood still, everything was about to change. The little girl pulled the car door handle with all her strength. It did not open. "It's locked," she said quickly, her voice tight with fear. The rain soaked her hair and face, but she did not step back. She pressed her ear against the door, listening, hoping to hear even the faintest breath. There was nothing. She turned to the people behind her. "Please," she said, pointing at the man inside the car. "Someone help me open it." The crowd shifted uneasily. A tall man shook his head. "She's too young," he said. "What if the car explodes?" another person whispered. "It's not safe," a woman added, pulling her umbrella closer. The girl clenched her fists. "He doesn't have time," she said, her voice shaking now. "If we wait, he will die." Her words made some people look away. No one moved. The girl's eyes scanned the ground. Then she spotted a stone near the curb, half covered in mud. She ran to it, picked it up with both hands, and returned to the car. "Stop," someone shouted. "You'll hurt yourself." She raised the stone anyway. With a loud cry, she smashed it against the window. The glass cracked, then shattered. Sharp pieces fell onto the seat and the road. The rain rushed inside the car. She reached through the broken window, ignoring the cuts on her fingers, and unlocked the door. It swung open. A strange silence filled the air. The girl climbed inside and gently shook the man's shoulder. "Sir," she said softly, "please wake up." His head fell to the side. Her face went pale. She placed 2 fingers on his neck, just like her mother once taught her. 1 second. 2 seconds. Nothing. "No pulse," she whispered. Her hands trembled. Fear rushed into her chest. For a moment, she wanted to cry. But she didn't. She pulled him carefully out of the car and laid him flat on the wet road. She knelt beside him, her knees sinking into the puddles. My mom said to stay calm, she murmured. Count. Press. Don't stop. She placed both hands on the center of his chest and began to push down. Slow. Steady. Counting under her breath. 1, 2, 3. The crowd watched in shock. No one spoke. No one moved. The rain washed over the small girl and the unconscious man. Her arms started to ache. Her breaths came fast. Still, she did not stop. Please, she whispered between counts. Breathe. Then suddenly, the man's body jerked. He coughed hard. Water and air burst from his mouth. A sharp breath filled his lungs. The girl fell back in surprise. He's alive, someone cried out. At that moment, the sound of sirens grew louder in the distance. The little girl sat there, shaking, soaked, and silent, not knowing that she had just saved a life the whole world would soon talk about. Ammani still sat on the wet road, breathing hard. Her arms felt like heavy stones. Her hands were shaking. Small cuts on her fingers stung as rainwater ran over them. She stared at the man like she was afraid he might stop breathing again. The crowd finally came closer, slowly, carefully, like people waking up from a bad dream. A woman crouched beside Ammani and tried to cover her with an umbrella. Sweetheart, are you okay? The woman asked. Ammani nodded, but her eyes stayed on the man. Don't move him too much, Ammani warned, remembering the little things her mother had taught her. He needs air. He needs help fast. The man's eyes fluttered open for a second. His lips moved, but no words came out. He looked confused, like he did not understand where he was. Then his eyes rolled again, and his head turned slightly. He's fading. Ammani shouted. Please call them again. Tell them to hurry. A man with a phone raised it, his voice shaking as he spoke. They're coming. The ambulance is coming. The siren sound grew louder, cutting through the rain. Red and blue lights flashed in the distance like moving stars. People stepped back to make space. When the ambulance finally stopped, 2 paramedics jumped out with a stretcher and medical bags. Their boots splashed in the puddles as they ran to the man. Sir, can you hear me? One paramedic called, checking his pulse and shining a small light into his eyes. Another paramedic quickly placed an oxygen mask on his face. What happened? The first paramedic asked, looking at the crowd. People began to talk at once. He was inside the car. He wasn't breathing. We thought he was dead. Ammani lifted her hand quietly. I broke the window, she said. The door was locked. He had no pulse. I pressed his chest until he coughed. The paramedic's eyes widened. You did CPR? He asked, surprised. Ammani nodded. My mom taught me. The paramedic stared at her for a moment like he could not believe what he was hearing. You saved his life, he said softly. Ammani did not smile. She only asked in a small voice. Will he be okay? We'll do our best, the paramedic replied. They lifted the man onto the stretcher. As they wheeled him into the ambulance, his expensive watch glinted under the flashing lights. His suit was soaked and dirty now, and his perfect image looked broken. The crowd watched the ambulance doors close. Then the sirens started again, and the vehicle sped away. Ammani stood in the rain for a moment, feeling empty. Now that the danger was not in front of her anymore, the fear rushed back into her body all at once. Her knees shook. Her throat tightened. She looked down at her hands. There was blood. Not much, but enough to make her realize how close she had been to the glass. Suddenly, someone touched her shoulder gently. It was one of the paramedics. He had stepped out again. Hey, he said kindly. What's your name? Ammani, she answered. Do you have parents? Anyone with you? Ammani's eyes dropped. My grandma, she said. She's at home. He looked around and saw her broken sandals, her thin dress, the little bag on her shoulder. Where is home? He asked. Ammani pointed in the direction of the small, darker streets. Before the paramedic could say more, a police car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out. One spoke with the paramedics. The other looked at the broken car window and the wet road. Who broke the window? The officer asked, scanning the crowd. People began pointing. The girl did. She saved him. The officer's face changed from suspicion to surprise. He walked toward Ammani and crouched down to meet her eyes. Did you do this? He asked, pointing at the window. Ammani swallowed. Yes, she said. But the door was locked. He wasn't breathing. The officer stared at her, then looked at the crowd. Is that true? Several people nodded quickly. Yes. She saved him. If not for her, he would be gone. The officer stood up and spoke into his radio with a serious tone. We need to identify the victim. The car is high-end. Check the plate. Another officer walked to the back of the car and read the plate. He typed it into a device. His eyes widened almost instantly. He looked up sharply. "Sir," he said to the first officer, voice low but shocked, "this car belongs to Daniel Hart." The name hit the air like thunder. Some people gasped. "No way. Daniel Hart. The billionaire?" Ammani blinked, confused. She did not understand what billionaire truly meant. But she could feel the sudden change in everyone's behavior. People stepped back like the road itself had become important. The officer looked at Ammani with new respect. "Do you know who you just saved?" he asked. Ammani shook her head slowly. "I just saved a man," she replied. At the hospital, the halls smelled of medicine and cold air. Doctors rushed the unconscious man through swinging doors. "Nurse, get a monitor. Prepare the emergency room. Check his oxygen level." Ammani stood outside the emergency ward, dripping rainwater onto the clean floor. She felt out of place among the bright lights, white coats, and fast-moving feet. A nurse finally noticed her and approached. "Sweetheart," the nurse said softly, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders, "you can't stand out here in the cold. Come." Ammani allowed herself to be led to a bench. Her teeth began to chatter. Not just from the cold, but from everything she had just seen. Her mind kept replaying the moment his chest did not rise. The nurse handed her a cup of warm tea. "Drink," she said gently. Slowly. Ammani held the cup with both hands, feeling warmth touch her palms. Minutes passed. Then more. Hospital sounds filled the air, footsteps, distant crying, soft announcements, doors opening and closing. Ammani's eyes stayed fixed on the emergency room door. Because her heart still feared one thing. What if he stopped breathing again? Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the door opened. A doctor stepped out. His face was serious, but calmer now. "He's stable," the doctor said. Ammani's shoulders dropped like a heavy load had been removed. She exhaled for the first time in a long time. "He's stable," she repeated, just to be sure. The doctor nodded. "Yes," he said. "And do you know why?" Ammani stared at him, unsure. The doctor glanced down at her small hands, still marked by tiny cuts. "Because a little girl did what many adults were too afraid to do," he said. Ammani swallowed hard. Inside the emergency room, the man lay on a bed with tubes and monitors. His eyes were still closed, but the machine beside him beeped steadily, like a quiet promise that he was still here. And in that moment, while Ammani sat under a hospital blanket, the truth began to spread through the building. The man she saved was not just any man. He was Daniel Hart, a billionaire CEO. And the world was about to discover the name of the small girl who refused to walk away. But Ammani did not know any of that. All she knew was that the man on the hospital bed was alive, and her heart was still beating fast like it had not yet accepted that the danger was over. The emergency room door opened again. A nurse stepped out and looked around the hallway, scanning faces. "Who is Ammani?" she asked gently. Ammani lifted her hand slowly. "Me." The nurse walked closer and crouched to her level. "He's awake now," the nurse said. "Not fully strong, but awake." He asked to see the girl who saved him. Ammani's breath caught. She stared at the nurse like she did not hear well. "He asked to see me?" The nurse smiled softly. "Yes. Are you okay to go in?" Ammani's fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. She was suddenly scared, not of the man, but of the moment. She did not know what a billionaire CEO looked like when he was awake. She did not know what rich people said. She did not know if she would make a mistake. But she stood up anyway. Because she remembered the way his chest was not moving. Because she remembered that life is life, no matter the clothes. The nurse held her hand and guided her into the room. The room was quiet except for the steady beep of the monitor. Daniel Hart lay on the bed. He looked different now. Without the sharp strength that people usually carried on the news, he looked like a tired man who had been pulled back from a deep place. His skin was pale. His lips were dry. A thin tube sat at his nose. One hand rested on the blanket, and a small bandage covered wherein 4 had been placed. But his eyes were open, and when those eyes met Ammani's face, they widened slowly. He stared at her for a long moment, as if his brain was still trying to understand what his heart already knew. "You," he whispered, his voice rough. "You're the one." Ammani held the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. Daniel tried to sit up, but he winced. A nurse moved fast to support him. "Please don't strain yourself," the nurse warned. Daniel nodded, breathing slowly. Then he looked back at Ammani again. How did you know? He asked. How did you know I wasn't breathing? Ammani swallowed. I saw your chest, she replied. It wasn't rising. My mom taught me to check. And when I touched your neck, there was no pulse. Daniel blinked hard. His eyes became wet. My God, he whispered. He turned his face slightly away, embarrassed that tears were forming. A man like him was not used to breaking in front of strangers, not used to feeling helpless. But the truth had no respect for pride. You saved me, he said again, slower this time, like he wanted to feel the words. Ammani looked down. I just helped, she replied. Anyone would have. Daniel let out a weak breath that almost sounded like a sad laugh. No, he said. That's the painful part. Not everyone would have. A doctor entered the room with a tablet. 2 police officers stood by the door. A serious-looking man in a dark suit also arrived, holding a folder tightly to his chest. He looked like someone used to giving orders. The moment he saw Daniel awake, his shoulders dropped in relief. Sir, the man said quickly. Thank goodness. We've been looking for you. You're bored. Daniel lifted his hand slightly. Not now, he said. The man stopped immediately, shocked by the tone. Daniel's eyes stayed on Ammani. Who is she? He asked. The nurse explained softly. Her name is Ammani. She's the one who performed CPR until the ambulance arrived. The man in the suit stared at Ammani like she was something impossible. A child did CPR? He asked, confused. Ammani felt small under all the eyes. Daniel's voice turned firm, though it was still weak. Yes, he said. A child. And she did what grown people refused to do. The room grew still. The doctor cleared his throat. Mr. Hart, the doctor said, you had a sudden medical episode. It could have ended badly. You were very lucky. Daniel's eyes lowered for a moment. Then he looked at Ammani again and asked the question that mattered most to him now. Where are your parents? Ammani's throat tightened. Her eyes burned. I don't have them, she answered softly. It's just my grandma. Daniel's face changed. The sadness in his eyes deepened. And where's your grandma? He asked. At home, Ammani said. She is not strong. Sometimes she coughs all night. Daniel closed his eyes for a second, like something inside him broke. The man in the suit shifted uncomfortably. The police officers exchanged a quick look. Even the nurse looked away, swallowing. Daniel opened his eyes again. Did anyone call her? He asked. Ammani shook her head. I don't have airtime. The simple words hit the room like a stone. A man with billions in accounts, and a girl who could not even make a phone call. Daniel turned to the man in the suit. Call her, he ordered. Now. And send someone to bring her here safely. Yes, sir, the man replied instantly, already dialing. Then Daniel looked back at Ammani. What were you doing on that road in the rain? He asked gently. Ammani hesitated, ashamed. I was coming back, she said. From selling fruits. I needed to buy medicine for my grandma. Daniel's eyes squeezed shut again. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to say sorry to the whole world. But he only whispered, I see. Later that evening, when Daniel was moved to a private room, Ammani sat on a chair beside the bed. Her legs dangled because the chair was too tall for her. A nurse cleaned the small cuts on her fingers and wrapped them with neat bandages. Ammani watched her hands, feeling strange. People were treating her with care now. Not because she was rich, but because she had done something brave. Daniel noticed her looking at the bandages. Does it hurt? He asked. Ammani shrugged. A little. Daniel's voice became quiet. I'm Daniel, he said, as if introducing himself like a normal person. Ammani blinked. You are not angry that I broke your car window? She asked suddenly. Daniel paused. Then he let out a tired, honest laugh. Angry, he repeated. He shook his head slowly, still amazed. Little one, he said, you broke a window and gave me back my life. Ammani's eyes filled with emotion she did not understand. Daniel's smile faded, replaced by something deeper, gratitude mixed with regret. I have met many people, he said quietly. People who smile when cameras are watching. People who clap at charity events. People who say big words about kindness. He looked at her again. But today, you showed me what real kindness looks like. Ammani lowered her gaze, embarrassed. Daniel swallowed, then spoke carefully, like he was making a vow. I don't know what brought you to that road, he said. But I know this, you will not return to the same suffering. Ammani's head lifted quickly. Daniel continued, his eyes steady. I will take care of your grandma's treatment. I will make sure you stay in school. I will make sure you are safe. Ammani stared at him, speechless. Then she whispered, almost scared to hope. Why? Daniel's voice broke slightly. Because you saved me when everyone gave up, he said. And because I don't want my life to go back to normal, if normal means ignoring people like you. Ammani's lips trembled. She tried to blink away her tears, but they fell anyway. Not loud tears. Quiet tears. The kind that come when a heart has been tired for too long. And as Daniel watched her cry, he realized something that hit him harder than the near-death moment. This little girl did not just save his life. She had also awakened a part of him that money had buried for years. And outside the hospital, in the rain-washed city, news had already started to spread. A security camera footage had been found. A bystander had recorded a video. And by morning, millions of people would be asking the same question. Who is Ammani? And how did a little girl become the reason a billionaire CEO is still alive? By morning, the city was already buzzing. Phones were ringing. Screens were glowing. People replayed the same short video again and again. Rain falling hard, a black luxury car on the roadside, and a small girl kneeling on wet ground, pressing on a man's chest while adults stood back in shock. The video was shaky, but the truth was clear. A child had done what grown people were too afraid to do. And the man she saved was Daniel Hart, one of the most powerful billionaire CEOs in the country. In the hospital, the atmosphere changed completely. Security guards stood at the entrance. Nurses walked faster. Doctors spoke in hushed tones. Not because the hospital wanted drama, but because reporters were already arriving. Where is Daniel Hart? Is it true a child saved him? Who is the girl? The hospital tried to keep it private. But the story had already escaped into the world like smoke. Daniel stayed in his private room, resting, but his mind did not rest at all. He kept thinking about the road. He kept thinking about the crowd. He kept hearing Ammani's voice in his head. Wait, he's not breathing. He had been surrounded by people for years, assistants, drivers, employees, security. Yet the night he almost died, the people around him did not act. Only one person acted. A child with nothing. That truth hurt him. And it also changed him. Later that day, a hospital staff member knocked softly and entered. Behind her was an elderly woman with a tired face and gentle eyes. She leaned on a walking stick. Her wrapper was simple. Her slippers were worn. The moment Ammani saw her, she jumped off the chair. Grandma! She ran into the old woman's arms and held her tightly, like she was afraid she could disappear. The grandmother's hands shook as she touched Ammani's wet hair. My child, she said, voice breaking. They told me you were in a hospital. They told me you broke glass. They told me you saved a man. Ammani hugged her harder. I was scared, Grandma, she whispered. But he wasn't breathing. The grandmother pulled back and looked into her face. Then she began to cry. Not because of fear, but because she saw something in Ammani's eyes. Something strong, something brave, something beyond her age. Daniel watched from the bed. His chest tightened. He had never seen a child hold a grandmother like that, as if the grandmother was the child's whole world. He cleared his throat softly. The grandmother turned and froze when she saw him. She immediately tried to kneel. Oh, sir, please forgive my granddaughter, if she caused any damage. Daniel raised his hand quickly. No, he said gently. Please don't kneel. The grandmother hesitated. Daniel's voice stayed calm. She did not cause damage, he said. She saved my life. The grandmother trembled. Ammani stood beside her, holding her hand. Daniel continued, his eyes sincere. I want to take care of your health, he said. All of it. Not just today. From now on. The grandmother stared, shocked. Sir, why would you do that for us? Daniel looked at Ammani. Because she did for me what money could not buy, he replied. She gave me another chance to live. Daniel did not speak like a man making empty promises. He acted quickly. That same day, he made calls. Not loud calls. Not show-off calls. Serious calls. He hired a private doctor to review Grandma's condition. He moved her into a better ward. He made sure she got tests, medicines, and proper care. When the bills came, Daniel didn't even look at them. Pay it, he told his assistant simply. Ammani watched everything quietly, eyes wide. She was not used to adults keeping promises. She was not used to help coming so fast. At night, Ammani sat by her grandmother's bed. Grandma slept peacefully for the first time in a long time. Ammani stared at the ceiling and whispered, God thank you. A tear rolled down her cheek, not from sadness, but from relief. 2 days later, Daniel was strong enough to sit up without pain. The hospital advised him to avoid stress. But Daniel insisted on doing one thing. He asked for a small press meeting inside the hospital with strict rules. No shouting, no pushing, no nonsense. When the time came, Daniel sat in a simple chair, wearing a plain shirt instead of a suit. A microphone stood before him. His assistant stood nearby. And in a corner of the room, behind the glass, Ammani watched with her grandmother and the nurse. Reporters asked questions. Mr. Hart, what happened that night? Was it an attack? Were you robbed? Who saved you? Daniel raised his hand. His voice was steady. It was not an attack, he said. It was a health emergency. He paused. I stopped breathing. The room went silent. Daniel continued. And while adults stood around scared, a little girl did CPR on me in the rain. Murmurs filled the room. Daniel's eyes became wet again, but he did not hide it. He spoke slowly, so every word could land. Her name is Ammani, he said. And she is the reason I am alive. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. Will we see her? Someone asked. Daniel looked toward the glass and shook his head gently. No, he said. She is a child. She deserves peace. Then he added something that shocked the room. I also want to say this, he said. My whole life, people have clapped for me because I have money. He held the microphone closer. But money did not save me. He swallowed. A child saved me. He looked directly into the cameras. And I will spend my life proving that her kindness was not wasted. When Daniel was discharged, many people expected him to go back to business as usual. But he didn't. A week later, Daniel returned to the same road where the incident happened. Not with reporters. Not with cameras. Just with Ammani, her grandmother, and a few trusted staff. The rain had stopped. The road looked ordinary again. But to Daniel, it was not ordinary. It was the place where he died and returned. He stood quietly, then turned to Ammani. This is where you chose courage, he said. Ammani looked down. I was just scared, she admitted. But I didn't want you to die. Daniel nodded, eyes shining. That is courage, he said. That same month, Daniel launched a foundation. Not the kind that only gives out food for photos. A real one. It had a clear mission. Teach emergency skills in schools. Provide free basic first aid training. Support struggling children who want education. Help low-income families access medical care. He named it the Ammani Hope Foundation. When the name was announced, the world melted. People cried. People donated. Schools asked to join. And for the first time in Ammani's life, her name was spoken with respect. Daniel kept his promise. Ammani returned to school, but now she had clean uniforms, shoes that fit, books of her own, a school bag that was not torn. Her teachers were shocked. Her classmates stared. Some were jealous. Some were curious. But Ammani remained quiet. She did not start acting proud. She still helped others. She still greeted everyone politely. And every weekend, she visited her grandmother, who was now improving day by day. One afternoon, after school, Ammani sat on a bench outside the new foundation office. Daniel sat beside her, not in a suit, but in a simple shirt again. He looked at her and asked softly, Do you know what you gave me, Ammani? Ammani blinked. Life, she guessed. Daniel smiled, but shook his head. You gave me a reason, he said. A reason to be better. Ammani stared at him, confused. Daniel pointed gently at her chest. Your heart, he said, is richer than my bank account. Ammani's eyes filled again. She whispered, I didn't know people could change. Daniel looked at her with deep honesty. I didn't know either, he replied. Months later, the first training program began. Children in uniforms learned how to check breathing, how to call for help, how to press the chest with steady hands, how not to panic. On the first day, Ammani stood in front of them nervously. A microphone was in her hand. Her knees shook. Daniel stood behind her, quietly supporting her with his presence. Ammani took a deep breath and spoke in simple words. I am not special because I saved a billionaire, she said. I am only a girl who did not want someone to die. She looked at the children. If you see someone in trouble, don't laugh. Don't fear. Don't walk away. Her voice grew stronger. Help, even if your hands are small. The hall became silent. Some parents wiped tears. Daniel looked away, blinking hard. Because he understood now. Ammani did not only save his breath that night. She saved his heart. And as the applause rose, Ammani looked at Daniel and smiled, small and real. Not because she wanted fame, but because she finally understood something powerful. A single brave moment can change two lives forever. And sometimes, the people the world ignores today are the ones who will inspire the world tomorrow. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful story, like, comment, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.